Hey everyone, my name is Seb Stott and this is the brand new Norco Sight VLT. In fact, Norco have released 3 brand new e-bikes, the Range, Sight and Fluid VLT, which have 170, 150 and 130 millimeters of rear wheel travel respectively. All 3 bikes have 10 millimeters more travel at the front, they're all 29-inch only and they all use Shimano's EP8 motor. But what makes all 3 of these bikes stand out is the batteries they share. So there's actually a choice of 3 batteries. There's a 540, a 720 and a 900 watt-hour battery. So according to Norco, the 720 watt-hour battery weighs the same as the 630 watt-hour Shimano battery used in the older VLT bikes. And the 900 watt-hour battery, which is what's in this Sight, is claimed to be the biggest in the mountain bike industry without using a range extender. So that means you can do more laps and without a range extender taking up the space of a water bottle. The 900 watt-hour battery is still heavy though, at 4.57 kilos, so you might want to have a smaller battery if you're planning to do shorter rides. And maybe if you have one of each, you can select the battery for the length of ride you're going to be doing. Speaking of weight, this is the top spec carbon version of the mid-travel Sight, so it's got carbon mainframe and seat stay, and yet in XL it weighs 25.6 kilos with the biggest battery, which is pretty heavy. But according to Norco's numbers, it will go down to 24.2 kilos with the smallest battery, which still isn't exactly light. So this bike with the battery, which I would recommend getting, costs $9,800 US all in. And obviously if you want multiple batteries to take advantage of that sort of weight tuning capability, it will cost even more. Another cool feature of this design is that the motor is rotated kind of anti-clockwise as you look at it, which means that the battery can slide in and out of the down tube. That means they don't need to put a door in the bottom of the down tube to get the battery out, which means that it's an intact tube, which makes it lighter. Norco say that this arrangement allows them to better optimize the pivot locations and therefore the suspension kinematics. It also means that because the front of the motor is a bit higher, there's a bit more ground clearance, so there's less chance of sumping out the front of the motor on sort of awkward steppy terrain. This arrangement also makes room for not 1 but 2 water bottles in the large and the extra large size. So too bad if you're short because you can only fit 1 water bottle and you will get dehydrated. Norco's rider line geometry means that the effective seat angle gets steeper per size. So it goes from 77 degrees in the small to 78 degrees in the extra large. That's to stop taller riders with the seat higher up feeling too far off the back on steep climbs. But unlike some other rider line bikes from Norco, the head angle stays the same at 64 degrees and the rear center stays the same too at 460 millimeters. I suspect that's because that's just as short as they could make it, and so all the sizes have the same rear center length. I've not had this bike for long, but I've had a couple of decent rides on it already, and it's a really good bike, but the standard of e-bikes has come on a lot recently, so I'm going to be quite critical about it. Even on the XL, I feel that the chainstays could be a touch shorter. I mean, I can manual this bike okay, but that's not surprising given I'm 190 centimeters tall. And it does take noticeably more effort than similarly heavy e-bikes with shorter chainstays. And that's going to be a bigger deal for shorter riders. And while I'm being critical, I'm not sure I get the need for 3 different travel options for an e-bike. I think the whole idea of having shorter travel for climbing and longer travel for descending doesn't really apply when you've got a motor, because you kind of get beaten up on the climbs as well as the descents. So having more travel is kind of the best of both worlds. And while this bike has 150 millimeters of rear travel and 160 up front, which is plenty for most situations, I am still hitting the bump stops quite often. And at the same time, it isn't as supple and forgiving as a longer travel e-bike, both when going uphill and when going downhill. And of course, Norco has a longer travel e-bike, the Range VLT. But my point is, I just don't see the need for 3 different travel options with an e-bike, and I'd rather they sent me the Range, I think. With all the critical stuff out the way, there's a lot to like about this bike. For starters, 29-inch wheels still work the best for climbing, even with an e-bike. And along with that 78-degree effective seat angle, it really kind of motors up the climbs, even by e-bike standards. And while I would prefer a little bit more travel, the suspension on the Sight does work pretty well, especially once I'd added an extra volume spacer to the fork and the shock. They give lots of traction along with those double down tires, and the Fox 36 is perfectly stiff enough for an e-bike. This is the e-bike version, which has a slightly stiffer chassis than the regular fork. The combination of the assegai and the dissector I think is particularly well chosen too, gives you plenty of grip, but with that slightly faster rolling tyre helping to eke out a bit more range or make it a bit easier when you're on eco mode or with the motor off even. But the thing that really appeals about this bike is just that massive battery. So the first ride I did, I ended up doing quite a few climbs and descents and ended up miles away from my house. And I wasn't worried about getting back at all. I got back with a couple of bars of battery left, and that's despite going boost mode the whole time. So just that peace of mind of that extra range, it is really nice. And the fact that you can take 2 water bottles with you, I think is really cool as well, so that you stay fueled up as long as the bike does. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. I'd be particularly interested to hear what you think about shorter travel e-bikes, whether they appeal to you or whether you agree with me that if you've got a motor, you might as well have more travel. And finally, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.